So I haven't got any particular presentation started, but it was really interesting when you said at the beginning about the scheme and the way people get paid to help out. One of my first sort of formal career started way back in the 1980s on a similar thing. I left school after my baccalaureate. I was raised in France. Um, Not wanting to go to university because I was discouraged from doing the course I wanted to do, which is journalism, which is actually one of the jobs I do today. But the careers advisor said there's no future in journalism. So I left school thinking, no, and initially was doing jobs like working on building sites, picking fruit and veg, and came across this course to do a paid late apprenticeship, accelerated apprenticeship, and became a chef. And worked as a chef for a number of years before I had a back injury, couldn't continue it, moved back to the UK, eventually went back to university after trying to become a rock star unsuccessfully for a few years. Uh, and today find myself editing a citizens journalism initiative called Central Bylines. But I have actually been a paid writer now for over a decade. I wouldn't say I make all of my money from writing, but I make some money from writing. And last year, sort of emerging out of the wreckage of the anti-Brexit movement, um, a whole network of online newspapers began, starting with Yorkshire Bylines. Central Bylines was launched just a month ago, but it grew out of what was East Midlands Bylines, which we launched last September. And what it is just trying to speak truth to power, to use that expression, to hold the government to account, to give people a way to tell their stories, use their knowledge to talk about a variety of things. So just here's some of the articles that I've written recently. So I wrote after the sort of murder of Sarah Everard in London. I wrote something about the conversations men should have with each other about women's safety. And it's just based on my own experiences of life of having witnessed when I was 16 a sexual assault and having no idea how to deal with it or what to do, because it's just something about part of our responsibility as men in this is to make sure that other men behave better. And that's one thing we can do. I wrote a comedy piece on the prehistory of Brexit, and I wrote something about the government proposals to hold asylum seekers offshore, and how that's both got a very bad history, but is also not the way to go about it. So as a newspaper, we cover a variety of stories where I'm interested when I hear some of you talk about being filmmakers and photographers, because we're always looking for people to contribute to us, and that's something you might be interested. So we've written recently The End of the Line, that's about, is there a future for the monarchy, given the revelations about what goes in Buckingham Palace. We had an International Women's Day article about a pioneer of public health from the Midlands. A comedy piece called Carrie Antoinette's Dead Cat Diary, which is all the various ways the government tries to distract us from what they're actually doing. Something on the future or not of Vauxhall cars. One of our MPs sort of telling the EU that we're going to stop buying their water if they don't treat us better. A whole variety of articles. We have people writing for us from all kinds of different backgrounds. So that's a little bit about Central Bylines. In my paid work, and again, this may be something that's of interest. I started as a manual worker, but having gone back to university in my 30s and started this new career in first in sustainability, sort of doing policy research, policy work after having done a degree with the Open University, and then a distance learning master's at South Bank University. I've been writing for this magazine called Eco Textile News for the last 12 years now, which included sort of a hold the front page moment in 2014-15 when I got information about large-scale land grabs and forest clearance in Ethiopia, where indigenous people were being pushed off the land. A couple of quite large, well-known textile companies implicated in that. So it was a big, big story, which we managed to get reversed, but also led to several standards, sustainability standards, changing their policies on deforestation, and a project funded by the government of the Netherlands, working with a textile, with H&M, which you all know, to come up with a protocol for investment in agriculture in Ethiopia to prevent. And the importance of this landscape isn't just the landscape and the animals and the people who live on it. This is the area where the oldest known human origins are. This is all of our history here. So turning that land into farms, factories, means we may miss out on learning more about who our ancestors were. Some of you may have heard of Lucy, who's our oldest known common human ancestor, comes from this area, which is in the Rift Valley of Eastern Africa. The river is known as the Omo. So you never know, I guess, where life is going to take you wherever you start out. So that's a little bit about that part of the story. I don't know if at this point there's any questions or anything people want to ask.
So I'd say feel free to put them in chat if anybody's got any burning questions straight away. It's incredible. It's like you're changing the world. How do you get involved in a project like that one you've just mentioned? It seems, you know.
It was purely, obviously my profile's out there in this field. I started studying with the Open University in the mid-1990s. So that was, over a decade after I'd left school. But as I said, I'd moved back to the UK because of damaging my back. Initially in 1996, I did a BTEC NVQ in business administration. Initially working in South London with community music projects. From there, after that, I thought, maybe I should study something else. So I'd always had an interest in geography and also sustainability. So Open University were offering courses in environmental science and international development. So I started doing those while working. And from there, I had an offer to go and do a master's degree at South Bank University, distance learning. So perfect, you don't have to actually attend a lecture. I've always hated classrooms. So distance learning was perfect because I could study on the tube on the way home or at weekends or in the evenings. And from there, because I'd also done business administration, I got a job with a think tank in London, initially just running their budgets and filing the paperwork. And gradually, because I was studying in the same field, I managed to take on bits and pieces of project work. And I then went to work for a campaign group called Pesticide Action Network, who are promoting sustainable agriculture, which interested me because I'd worked on farms as a youngster. So I had practical experience. Again, something I'd learned with my hands came in useful later working with my head, because I knew what effects pesticides had, not just on workers, but also on the environment, on animals, on insects, on plants, because you get to see when you're picking a crop, you see the burns left from the chemicals, you see the dead insects, you see dead animals, and you know the feeling you get in your chest when you've been following a tractor spraying a chemical. And from there I went freelance. So I gradually gained the profile. If you see here a contrast, on the right of the picture there is me as an 18-year-old in the south of France. And on the left, me with the EU flag is actually talking in Brussels at the European Union about the importance of traceability in textiles. So I went from, this very rural working background to talking to policymakers and influencers there. So I was approached when that Ethiopia story came back. Somebody contacted me by email saying, "I've seen your articles. I've got some information about this. Can I share it with you?" And I said, "Yes, of course." We got that information. Working with my editor, we checked it. We knew who a lot of the certifiers were. We knew who the potential buyers were. We were able, using tools like Google Maps and Google Earth, to verify the area, to see the pictures of the deforestation. I had, through professionally, some contacts in Ethiopia who were able, off the records, to confirm what we'd said. If they'd confirmed on the records, they would have been at risk of prison in Ethiopia. So that's how it started. But yeah, it's just, you never know where life will take you.
I think that's really key what you've just said. Starting from a school careers advisor that told you that you can't do journalism, and then you hear the map and the web of things that you've done and how one thing's led to another. It's looking back, you'd have created quite a web there.
Yes, and it is, chance, taking your chances, but it's also following the accident. So when I hurt my back as a chef, the doctor in France said, "You're going to go on disability, mate." And I thought, no, that's actually not what I want to be doing. So chances in France of doing further education as an adult were quite poor at the time. So I thought, no, let me go and see what is elsewhere. So that's when I moved back to Britain and eventually started studying again. So yeah, it's life's accidents.
And we've got a question from Oliver. What would you say was the most challenging thing you had to do in your career?
Oh, okay. Well, I think that story was one of them, because the magazine Eco-Textile News is not big, and we were threatened with big lawsuits by the people who are exploiting the land, who are a company based in Turkey. So that's when you panic and you think you could lose everything here, because if you lose a lawsuit, you're bankrupt. So I think pursuing that story was one of them. And then I think just taking the chances to move, to change where you live. It would have been very easy to stay where I was after the back problem. Just say, okay, that's it.
Brilliant. Has anybody got any other questions? Is there more you want to share, Simon, so we move on?
I have got more. It depends how much you want to hear. I was interested in what you were saying about the buildings. I have a small job these days as well as a co-op member pioneer.
Oh.
And I don't know if you've worked with any of them down in Colville. You should have one, because before COVID, we did some work on spaces and linked up with some groups to try and encourage people to do the same thing, to get involved in redeveloping community spaces, community ownership. I think that's really, really important. So be happy to talk to you about that another time, or share some information with you, Dina, but I think that's something where the co-op may be willing to help.
That would be brilliant. We've been working with Central England Co-op, but I'm guessing you're talking about Co-op Group, the blue
yes, Co-op Group. Yes.
So, just for everyone out there, if you see a green co-op, green co-ops are a Central England co-op, which cover the majority of the Central England area. And if you've got a blue co-op, they are group, which is slightly different. But yeah, it'd be brilliant to connect with pioneers in Colville.
I'll see if I can find out who yours are. And we do cooperate, obviously, with Green Co-op as well. But
Yeah,
there have been some specific things, and there's of course the local community fund,
that would be brilliant.
which is something. So I've made a note there.
Fab. In terms of writing and what you're looking for, I guess there's two angles. One is all the Kickstarters are looking, obviously, after 6 months to move into either self-employment, the new employment, or into further education. It's top tips for being able to sell themselves and have that evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Got any thoughts on that?
Yes, so don't be afraid to try. So, send things to people, whether you think you've got a chance or not. You may get rejected, but if you haven't tried, you'll never know. And again, thinking back to my past careers when I was an aspiring musician, one of the things is send things to people, but don't always send the obvious. And I remember something we did when was not send a demo tape to record companies, which is what you did in those days, because they're not going to they're going to listen to maybe a little bit of it, but they receive maybe 100 every day. So send them something else. Send them a picture. Send them a story. Send them go and see people. It's harder for people to tell you no if they've met you. But yeah, submit. Get a copy if you're an aspiring writer of the Writers and Artists Yearbook. It lists every single magazine and publication in the UK. So that can give you a list of people to contact, but it will also tell you how to contact them and what subjects they're interested in. You'll have more chance if you're sending people something that they already have an interest in. The other is contact your local newspapers. They may be looking for content, websites. If you want to showcase yourself, your own website or social media presence is a way to do that.
And with regard to sharing stories and writing itself, so that each person on the screen has got a challenge just to write their little paragraph for the crew handbook, just as a starter. So have you got any tips of how to approach that?
Well, don't be afraid. Writing hurts. If a writer tells you it's easy, it's not. And I think it's Douglas Adams who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy back when I was young. And they've just published some extracts from his writing, and he's written a note to himself early on saying, "It hurts. You may think this is crap. You can just come back. You can come back to it. Just get something down on paper, and then look at it. You can look at it again, write it again, show it to somebody, get their advice, but don't force it. So even if you just do a bullet point a day about who you are, where you want to be, you can tie it up together. But writing hurts. There isn't a single person who just does it easily. And I was giving advice to somebody the other day that I now collaborate with on some projects. And she was saying, God, I'm done the research and I have no idea where to start. How do you put all that stuff in a book? I have written 2 books in my field. And just at some point, it all comes out of you. So what you're doing, you're absorbing stuff. And at some point, it all starts to make sense. It starts to make patterns in your head. And then it goes down on the page. But you first got to do the thinking. The other thing I would say, don't be afraid to doodle. Take a blank piece of paper. The computer makes writing hard. It's one of the things I've learned, because it all happens in a straight line. So get a piece of paper and do a diagram. And it may be a diagram about if you're writing for, where you want to be. So where you are, where you want to be. It can be pictures, it can be words, it can be. But get off the computer for doing that bit. Some people use wall charts, whiteboards, chalkboards. But yeah, because the screen tries to pull you in, but everything's in a straight line.
Thank you ever so much, Simon.
Well, thank you all and good luck.
And we'll see you again soon.
Okay. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.